Hello, everybody. You can be at ease, huh? No need to be, so it's fine, even if we have the military fatigue of Julian. A few numbers. If tomorrow there was an aggression like Russia did for Ukraine on France, which is the country I know best, we would last 5 days with the level of ammunition we have. The glass half full of that story is that 3 years ago, in 2022, when Russia invaded, we had 4 days. So you say there is a 25% increase. Second number to let you think, the Chinese Navy right now is building up every 3 years the fleet of the UK and or the fleet of France. So every 3 years we are adding up, and today already China has more ships and more modern ships than the US has. It does not have yet the aircraft carriers, but still it's a striking number. A third number, we heard from Steffi this what just happened in Poland. You probably are all aware that we shut down 4 out of the 19 drones, and if you think about also the cost difference, there's probably a 1 to 20 or 1 to 50 difference between the cost of the missiles we use to shoot down a quarter of them and the cost of the drones that we send. So increasingly we have this asymmetric war that is also played on. So to discuss about the new frontiers of defense, technology and capital, a great panel. We have very little time, so I will ask each of the panelists, and I'll do the same, to say in 60 seconds who you are and what you do, and starting with Quirin.
Yeah, hi. I'm Herz. I'm a defense investor. I work for one of the biggest primes in Europe. I built the whole startup ecosystem, mainly the investment part, for it from the scratch, and that's my role in this panel.
Balázs.
I'm Balázs, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Titan Technologies, and actually Andre explained very much what the problem is we are solving. We are developing a cost-effective counter-drone system to shoot down drones and to protect critical infrastructure and people. And that's what we are doing in Ukraine, that's what we are doing very actively, and what happened yesterday in Poland, I think it's right, we don't need more science. Our air defense has a massive capability gap when it comes to drones. And that's what we are doing. We are shooting down drones with other drones, which makes the cost difference much lower than shooting down a drone with a missile. So this is the solution we need on scale in the future when we want to protect ourselves and our critical infrastructure.
Hi, my name is Julian, and as you might guessed, I'm a German armed forces officer. I've served for 10 years. Mainly my career has been with a specialized ranger unit within the airborne infantry, and now I'm a researcher at the Bundeswehr University on topics such as urban warfare, but also military innovation and the intersection of how warfare and technology interact, which has become more and more important in recent years.
So we have a great panel, so let me add on my side. So I'm also a reserve officer, so as you cannot see. Apart from running this mega movement, I'm heading a research center, which is called the Joint European Disruptive Initiative, which is basically building at the European level an agency for advanced research. So you have Sprint in Germany, our good friends of Sprint, you have ARIA in the UK. We try to do that at scale, including the UK. So we launch programs to avoid strategic surprise. That means trying always not to mimic what others are doing, not running the war of yesterday, but trying to prevent what's going to happen in the next 3 to 8 years and developing the technology for that. It's not defense-oriented, but that's the point also of this panel, is where are the frontiers, and especially where do you see the blurring between the civilian part and the military part? What is the right interaction between society and its military? What is the right strategic level we need? So give us, maybe each of you, maybe starting with 1 or 2 big ideas on these new frontiers that you would like to mention, either hurdles or maybe thoughts that we should prepare in order not to be surprised. You want to start, Julian?
Yes. How I would like you to think about defense technology is firstly as one of the most urgently needed assets in defending our democracies. The recent already mentioned incursion of drones into Poland leaves no doubt that we need innovative defensive systems such as Balázs is building to defend ourselves. But I would also like you to think about defense technology as a market that is increasingly driven by unsophisticated money, by overflowing red oceans, by buzzwords, and LinkedIn experts. And I say this so honestly because I am concerned that these loud voices with seemingly simple answers will drown out the nuanced discussions we desperately need to do right now. Because in the end, I want you to remain critical. I want you to not join the self-congratulation before a single product has launched. I want you to challenge assumptions rather than just follow new ones. Because it's really, in defense technology, it's really about responsibility. Not only responsibility how we employ new technologies in warfare, but also whether we allow defense technology to become bad business. In the end, it ought to be about delivering the best possible solutions to our men and women in uniform who serve to protect us.
Wow, he's just getting warmed up. All right. So, Balázs, are we fighting the war of yesterday in our defense procurement?
Yeah, so what changed in the defense industry is very clear, I think. So in the past, there were like defense primes, and the procurement agencies working together with the defense primes on a daily basis. And now what happened, that the innovation cycle of the defense technology is so much faster that the defense primes can't really speed up. And then it comes to the startups, and we see in Ukraine, especially, a lot of startups on the front line, because they are delivering faster solutions, faster iterations. They are taking risks to go there. We were there several times for several weeks. We are there next week. We are there. We have a team in Ukraine on the ground, and this is the difference. And the procurement agency is like trying to deal with the primes because it's easier for them than bring also into the system new players. So for newcomers, they have to deal with the same huge bureaucracy than as primes. As a prime like Rheinmetall has like 26 people in Koblenz, where is like the procurement agency just for this agency. We have one people in the company who is handling the governmental sales and the government. So this is the difference, and we have to make this entrance for newcomers, not just only for startups, but maybe also for civil industry, to enter this industry much easier, because then at the end, our country will profit from the best technology and not from the technology which is like has the most lobby power.
This is not a political gathering, but it's turning into that. Maybe, Corinne, I wanted to float another number with you. Since 2022, so since the Russian aggression, there was additional spending in Europe. 78%, so almost 80% of the additional money we've funded went to US, or non-European, mainly US providers. So without going into this, I would say, a bit fluffy sovereignty topic, you are a big proponent of the German and European ecosystem. What does the ecosystem need to do to reap the full advantage of that?
Good question. First of all, we have to get traction. The money, the money will flow into USA was because they could provide the platforms, and we, as Julian mentioned, as Balázs mentioned, we need that. We have to defend ourselves. The Polish incidents, by violating the aerospace, is shown our weaknesses, and we have the infrastructure, and we have the business, we have the primes and the industry, we got the startups, but there's no direction in the market. We're building backlog. That's good for the investors. Just see the skyrocketing Rheinmetall stock. That's all great and good. Everyone is talking about, but it's not getting us any further.
So what needs to happen? I mean, Balázs was very clear about the wonderful procurement agency in Germany called BANBW. In France, you would have DGA. Do we need to break up these institutions and rebuild them?
May I just add to something?
Please. I hope you will answer to the second question too.
I will try, because I think it's connected. You said that the money, or you both said that the money is going to the United States. And this is not only because they can provide the platforms, but also because Europe has no clue whatsoever how we want to defend ourselves. We largely require the Americans not only to provide our systems, but also the guidance on how do we defend ourselves. What is the picture?
You mean the doctrine, the engagement
exactly,
rules?
Exactly. And we rely on them, and we still, even under Trump too, we still rely on them. We have not come to a political decisions whether we really want to invest and we really want to come up with disruptive ideas how Europe can defend itself on its own. And I think if we talk about procurement, we have to be fair to them that procurement can only fulfill a political decision, a political vision of what we want to achieve. And I think guys like Banash, they really offer solutions, but the political decision has to come first, so their tools can fit into a wider vision of what we want to achieve.
I don't think that, to be honest. I think that we know exactly what we want to do and what we need, but the point is that it gets stuck in political discussion. Take FCAS. We're trying to build...
Well, you look at me.
Sorry? Yeah. So we're trying to get from different platforms just to one. We're doing the same with tanks and MGCS. But it's getting stuck in a political business. We had contracts with France. We, from our side, executed the contracts, but now France is trying to renegotiate that. And I think we have pretty good ideas how to spend the money, but everyone is building their own kingdom and fighting for their kingdom. And that's not how you defend Europe as a whole. You can defend nations by that, but not the concept we're trying to build in the last 20 years.
Well, I'll give you one example, which is the A400M. I think the risk in Europe is that we often have the illusion, and the illusion is actually the worst thing because it takes away the sense of urgency, but it does not find a solution. A400M, one name, it's the transport plane, and I will always remember that 15 years ago, we wanted to have this joint transport plane, and then suddenly, I think you were a paratrooper too, right? Well, we realized that the German paratroopers, they love to jump from the sides, if that's correct. And the French paratroopers, they love to jump from the back. So what did we do for the A400M? Well, we did doors on the back and on the side. Result, I think 2 countries, except the European countries who build it, bought it. I think it's Indonesia and Malaysia for very number. So it has been it's a wonderful plane, but it has a commercial disaster because it's simply too expensive. Those who know the file, they know also the engines were built in Spain who had no clue about how to build engines. Anyway, so the mission topic. So what needs to change? Do we need to get politicians, but also citizens, because citizens take politicians into account, much more knowledgeable? You're calling for more strategic thinking. Where is that going to happen? Is it going to happen at the Chancellery, at Stauffenberg, or how do you call it, Benderblock?
Yeah.
Who is giving the strategy? Should it be all Queen Ursula deciding? I mean, who?
I think you're touching a really important point. I think, to be fair to our politicians, nobody would have won an election 4 years ago if they would have really made a big point about increasing defense budgets. And now, especially in Germany, we see that we lack a strategic thought at the top level. Politicians try to educate themselves, and we try to educate them on military topics. But of course, it can also only work if the broader citizenry joins that discussion and gets more and more involved into these military debates. Obviously, nobody has to become an expert on this, but it's rather about taking an interest, not ignoring these challenges that we face. I think just reading the newspapers about what's going on in our security systems is pretty much enough to hold our politicians to account and to incentivize them to not forgo these defense discussions come the next elections.
Just to add one thing, because I think what we have to accept that freedom is not for free. And we will settle this bill. We can choose, even if we allocate the resources and the political will to act, if necessary, decisively and bold, or we putting lives, European citizen lives, on the line. And just to clear that, to point that out, Ukraine never was given that kind of choice. So I think what Julian said is absolutely correct, but we have to accept we have to pay for that.
On the other side, like there's a change also in Germany in the mindset. So we have to be fair. Like the government is aware. So they, like also the Defense Minister Pistorius is aware of the problems.
Balázs is very worried about his next contract.
And now I'm not worried about contracts, but we have to be fair. Yep. So there is a mindset change, which is like, of course, started now and not like 10 years ago, but to like have the big picture. We have to see that also in the procurement office they are, so this change should happen also in every level, and this is very important. In the procurement office also in every level, and the politicians also every level from defense minister to the Bundestag. So, but there is a change, they are inviting us, they are involving us, and also it's not nothing primes and startups, this is something we have to solve together. Because they are also profiting or benefiting when the procurement system is easier, the primes are also benefiting from that. So there is definite, and they have also huge pressure because there is right now a huge budget also in Germany, and they have to spend this budget very meaningful, which means that automatically we have to make decisions faster.
So the concept of speed and the concept that Corinne was mentioning, not naming it, this concept of national security. When you go to the US, what is amazing is that everything is national security. I mean, food security is national security, energy, obviously. Our definition of defense and security was often very limited to, I would say, the hard metal, the weapons, etc. How do you see that evolving in a debate, and how do you see the ecosystem playing a role in that? And maybe you and Balázs could comment on this.
When it comes to
what is the role of the ecosystem to change the mindset that it's not just about the pure industry base, but it's a defense base, but it's a much larger deep tech ecosystem that is involved?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the prime, when we're talking about the ecosystem, we're talking about primes, startups, the academic ecosystem. But just talking for the primes, our capabilities are mainly on the ground. When it comes to cybersecurity, and we have a lot of threats regarding that, we have a lot of violations of our sovereignty regarding that, we're pretty blank. There's not really a strong ecosystem which is protecting our infrastructure, and not only the industrial basis, but the critical infrastructure. As I said, it comes to the food supply chain, it comes to the energy supply chain, and I think that we have strong primes, we have, in the meantime, strong startups, but when it comes to cybersecurity, we are relying on countries like Israel, for example.
Balázs? What is the role of the ecosystem? Is there a civil society role? Because obviously when the big primes are expressing their will, it's perceived as lobbying. Politicians are more cautious, they will follow the trend. What is the role of the ecosystem to have this kind of cultural change in society?
So I think the most important thing that everyone is aware also that in the next time we can win also an election with defense strategy. So this was not the case before. And when the whole society is aware of that, so all the journalists and everyone has a huge role, because when it comes, like what happens when today, like attacking Munich with drones, like why do we need this science as yesterday in Poland happened? And I think the most important thing that the whole society is aligned that defense is the most important, and it is a basic. And it was like neglected in the last 40 years because we thought that in war never can happen again. And when the society is aware of that, then actually all the problems are solved somehow, because this is everything about, it's starting with the basics, starting with a single person who is caring about defense and who is making also, okay, I pay tax because I want to live in a safer world. And when we realize that and we can make aware everyone of that, then every problems are solved somehow, because it's starting everything from the single person.
I would like to, please, Julian. If I may put on to this, I think the fastest way for the ecosystem to shape defense is by, is to build better solutions than the old legacy primes. I think we see that under wartime conditions in Ukraine, but we're yet to see that in Germany under peacetime conditions. And I think in order for them to shape how technology really drives our defense, we need the right founders, the right investors to really build not only products and new platforms, which are basically new shiny toys, but really solutions that we soldiers really urgently want to adapt and to adopt, because then the politicians will be glad to spend more money in this ecosystem rather than only on the old legacy primes.
Maybe most of you saw the military parade that happened in Beijing 10 days ago. And it was a very different parade than what you can see in other countries. There was much more smaller object, drones, and they were a bit painted with like shiny colors. But that made me think and I would like to have your 3 comments on that, is how do we avoid that we are looking backwards, and how do we look forward? I will give you one point to spark your interest. I was at the invitation of Yossi, which I don't know if he's in the room, a couple of months ago in Israel with some of my board members, and we met Mafat, which is basically a technology defense agency, and asking them, and I think now it's obvious, so no secrecy in that, asking them what is the next frontiers. They told me, well, the one thing that is a frontier for us is the whole underground sector. And think about the tunnels, think about what happened in Iran, where actually we still don't know what really happened with these bombs that drilled into their uranium enrichment thing. You probably heard that China apparently is building a huge C2 command and control center underground, so fully invisible to satellites, so we don't know. And so here you have a lot of technologies, quantum sensing, of course, deep drilling things. So this would be something. So when I hear Ursula von der Leyen saying, now we need a drone war, yes, this is the war of today. How do we prepare for the war of tomorrow? Starting with Ukraine. What is the 1 or 2 idea that the room could take with it?
Yeah, that's
your
coming
crystal
to
ball.
the drone wall. You know, it's kind of a race to the bottom, because the Russians built capabilities in that sector. We have others. We are better than that, to be honest. We got better systems, we got air defense. Just look about the Shah drones from Iran to Israel, they shut them all down. Yeah. We got the systems. I think we don't need a drone wall. I think that we just we should build up better processes. We should build up a better ecosystem. What Julian was mentioned, that when it comes to the procurement department, there's no way that a young startup can get any governmental contracts. We don't have any testing facilities where you just, launching your stuff, maybe with a jet propulsion, they all have to go to Estonia or to Ukraine. I think it's more like that we should accelerate our ecosystem and maybe just burn the bind down, I don't know, but we don't have to put us in that kind of race against Russia with drones and that large-scale stuff.
But also Germany is so good in production capacities. Like we saw that what happened in the car industry before, we were so good there, and we could use our power now to protect ourselves. So there is I think we in Germany are much better than we think. The problem is that the focus in Russia is completely different. And we should use our resources for the right things and to protect ourselves right now. And this is the most important thing. And we should also change our mind a little bit faster. Then, we saw that what happened with the car industry, we just missed it, and it's very unfortunate. But now we have a chance to be better in another field.
I think the most important thing to prepare ourselves for the next war is realizing that warfare is really context-specific. Many of you might have heard that the tank is dead. And to some extent in Ukraine that is actually true. But if you look at the war in Gaza, which you mentioned, it is utter nonsense. It's very important there. And then if you talk about conflict in the Taiwan Strait, it might be different again. So we really have to be context-specific, and we have to look at defense technology like we do at any other market, where we need founders, investors, and entrepreneurs generally who bring really a good market knowledge or understanding of how defense work, because only then we can build the right solutions for the context we need them to. And then only then can the procurement system buy those solutions.
Well, you see, we have I see them all on their chairs, very energetic. So I think there's this feel, what we got from you is this sense of urgency the need for more strategic. Maybe a concluding word from each of you. What is the biggest hurdle we need to overcome? We talked about bureaucracy, we talked about speed, but if there's one thing, and take maybe a European view, where we can finally get to a more unified and at scale approach from Europe, what would it be? What is the big hurdle we need to take out of the room? Balázs, you want to start?
I think that we are defining countries, they are working together stronger. We don't have to include every European country because it doesn't work, right? We can't deal with some countries.
So coalition of the willing.
Coalition of the willing, start small and then scale step by step.
Yeah, just saying in a more political way that war with Russia is not a worst case scenario anymore. We're reaching the point where it is the most likely scenario. Wow. And to be honest, you are all in the driver's seat to build a brighter future for Europe than we currently have. And we have to admit that the media coverage is not exactly what is happening in Ukraine right now. It's way worse.
Ooh, that is a somber note. Julian, you have the last word.
Yeah,
Cheer us up.
That's a tall order. I really want to add on the coalition of the willing, which I think we really need, and then we have to have a political discussion of how that coalition will defend ourselves without the Americans, because we cannot longer rely on them. We have to rely on Europe on our own.
Straight talk. Thank you very much to you. Thank you.